So what about the defensive measures? And the skill and dedication of system admins are required, of course, but cooperation of network users are also important and required. Authorization, permissions, and authentication, knowledge-based ones. And how do we make the authentication? It can be either knowledge-based by password or tokens. Tokens like the ID cards or smart cards, or you can use biometrics for this purpose, like the fingerprints and retinal scan for authorization. Highly secure systems are more likely to go multi-level, like in the movies, for example. And most common password types, secure passwords are, you should prevent easy guess or circular type passwords, and foil the dictionary attacks by adding a non-alphanumeric character, for example, to make passwords more reliable. And the firewall should be installed between inside and outside network, and virus filters should be also installed properly. And the last but not the least, the systems that has been used, operating systems, should be kept up to date, just in case to not have any security holes in them. And for the internet banking side, client-side attacks and protection mechanisms, there was a article by Opliger and his friends in 2009. Some banks use password and pins, and other banks use transaction authentication authorization numbers for this purpose. And many researchers have analyzed the secure socket layers, SSL and TLS protocol security, but have identified only a few theoretical shortcomings and vulnerabilities. In fact, they are not so bad. But this is the communication channel security focus, but in fact, an adversary has many ways to attack the client. Here, we should keep in mind that it's not the protocols, but the client is the weakest link here. The client represents the major vulnerability here. Installing many kinds of plugins on their client systems, of course, they're just end users. And with just a good cover story, like we discussed in the first slides of this chapter, the attackers can use social engineering techniques to trick the victim into revealing their information, and also offline attacks can be used here. And let me first introduce the credential stealing attack. It is done directly. It can be done offline, as we said, by, for example, telephone calls or something, or like phishing and farming and visual spoofing. These are all possible ways to steal the credentials. And then they use this identity to conduct their malicious purposes. The other one is the channel breaking attack, where the attacker cryptanalyzes the transportation protocol, which is studied in theory. None has been particularly successful in practice, but man-in-the-middle attacks are mounted on real-time and yet more efficient. These are called online attacks. And the content manipulation attack is also another type, where it is also called man-in-the-browser attack. Like, it is done by browser poisoning, and your browser gets hijacked or something. It has an alarming potential, and the only solution is the removal of malware, which is difficult and even impossible, forcing usually reinstallation of a system. Usually, when you get infected, the most reliable way is having a system set up from the scratch, rather than trying to remove it, because you can never be sure that you are 100% clean even if you remove the malware. So that's why reinstallation is much more reliable. And we should keep in mind that a browser can display correct data but can still transmit manipulated data to the server in the backside. So protection against offline credential stealing attacks are done by two-factor authentication, combining a hardware token with a PIN to unlock it. Like they are called, there are many types of technologies for this, like secure one-time verification, secure ID, and challenge response systems. And the two-factor authentication is, in fact, if properly designed and implemented, can effectively protect against most offline credential stealing attacks. They are, in fact, reliable. And the first one is the banking server application can try to enforce a proper server certificate validation, and so it ensures that the user is connected to the proper server. So they are using an extended validation SSL. This is the abbreviation of it. And the banking server application can invoke mechanisms that are specifically crafted to protect and against the man-in-the-middle attacks as well. And it is also suggested using multiple communication channels. For example, this one is very popular, requiring SMS codes as well when you're trying to connect. We should say that these are not mutually exclusive. You can use both of the layers of the protection at the same time, which makes your system much more reliable. So these are done for content manipulation attacks, and on the client protection side, there is theoretically possible solutions. You can have a dedicated client system. It's the best one, but quite expensive approach. You need to have a device particularly for this purpose provided for the customers. And a dedicated client software, again, this is technically feasible, but the bank must act as a software distributor as well. So again, rising the costs. And live distributions like bootable operating systems supported by the bank. Again, there is a usability problem here. Virtual machines are a research challenge. For example, VMware or QEMU solutions security remains a research challenge yet. They can be used, but not clear now. And browser operating system, again, an ongoing research area, like internet operating system or something like this. These are some available methods for client protection side, but as you see, these are not very practical yet, and even if they could be implemented, they look quite expensive at the moment. And trusted computing is like you use a special hardware device that ensures that the system boots into a secure state. Again, this is a new research area, and it still can be exploited as well. And a transaction authentication is like this. Following a user request, SMS message including a summary of transaction and confirmation is sent to the user. This is very reliable currently, and researchers expect many internet banks to begin using transaction authentication with specific heuristics as well in future. They're already using this. Sociotechnical security is pretty important in this sense. Reliability in IT systems is broader than the security and well design. And we should keep in mind that security is an instrumental value to IT systems. It has an instrumental value to IT systems. So it's very important. But we should keep, since it is it's partially related with human, so the security can be achieved sociotechnically as well. We should keep in mind. You can have very strong password by forcing it with some algorithms, but how about carelessness? You cannot do anything about it because it's completely on the human side. A single careless user compromises the security of a whole system. Like you can have 30 computers at a business with hardwares and software authentication, super passwords, biometric scans, fingerprints, monitoring traffic, and card system entry, but you still cannot guarantee 100% security, because the threats come especially from the inside. Like there is an open backdoor for pizza delivery, for example. You have lots of layers of security physically, but you have a backdoor for other incoming food delivery systems, or lending your password the daughter on a take your daughter to work day, for example. Like your child is there and you give her your password for a while. It means that again you're looking strong security again has a breach. Or an administrator, for example, using wife's first name for the root password, again another problem, or any other user. So security has to be implemented sociotechnically to achieve its goal. Really, any missteps in either arena, like if you have a flaw in technical side, again it's a problem. If you have a flaw in the social side, again you have a problem, which makes your system vulnerable in the end. So sociotechnical systems co-shaping scheme here is important again. Intruder must be also adept at social engineering, which results in fooling the people for this sense. Attackers look at this like this, and we can say that bottom line, as a result, security is an arms race. I mean, the attackers use lots of techniques here. Then the defenders put more, and the attackers just create new techniques for this, and the defenders put more. So it looks like an arms race in the end. So it could make sense to say that there is no need to discuss more on the intruder, because okay, they're evil guys. They're doing what we expect to do. They're trying to break into networks. That's it. I mean, we cannot do anything much about them. But how about who's responsible for the security breaches and security trade-offs? I mean, we can focus on what we can do instead of focusing on the intruders here. That is how we achieve socio-technical security on the defense side, or this is the ideal case. We should also be careful on dumpster diving, like the what we put in the junk boxes, or how we discard our devices, because people can get lots of information from our rubbish papers or something. So it means that all of the documents in a company or something destroyed properly, to avoid dumpster diving as well. So intruder is obviously faulty in such a breach, but who's responsible for security of the personal computer? It is based on usually the individual, the computer owner. It has to be done on the computer, and installation of security mechanisms result in some burden. You need to do something, plus some cost you need to pay for those security mechanisms. And if one person doesn't take a security step, can they be partially at least blamed when an intruder breaks in? Think about this question. Pause this video and think about it. Think, because they need to have some defensive measures. Again, there can be an analogy here, what we call home analogy. Like if, for example, a district has high crime rates, we can change our region, change our district. We can move to another district, for example, or we install sophisticated household systems in a risky or high crime area, for example. We do this, right? But there is a need for money, and if you are able to pay this and didn't do this, it means that you're acting foolish. If you can install a security system for your household, for example, and you didn't do it, it means that this can be explained with foolishness. But you can conclude that you still not contributed to wrongdoing. However, in IT configured societies, we should keep in mind that it gets very complicated. Just think about this. If A is a part of a larger system B, any risk at A puts B at risk as well, such as drone attacks, for example. If someone is not taking proper measures, it puts whole system at risk. It happens. So how about the trade-offs in security here? How far should security and law enforcement go to ensure the order? The previous issue was micro level, where we discussed it in the individual level. But current issue should be macro level. What should we do as society for those security measures? And how should we allow our governments do things with respect to security? We should be able to answer these questions. In 2001, after the attacks on the Twin Towers, United States Patriot Act passed with ease. In 2007, they found out that FBI was abusing this Patriot Act. In 3 years period, for example, over 100,000 national security letters for just customer purchases. Violations of privacy as well. So non-terrorist related acts can now be investigated legally as well. So this results in a trade-off here in security. Yes, you will have security, but it conflicts your privacy concerns in this society as well.